Welcome to Engage, leading conversations that matter. Join in the conversation. Send an email to engage@cfpublic.org. Send a recorded talkback message on the free Central Florida Public Media app. Leave a voicemail by calling 407-273-2300, extension 246. Engage is made possible with the support of listeners like you.
You're listening to Engage on Central Florida Public Media. I'm Sharon Stone. We just got out of hurricane season, and we're jumping right into a cold weather snap. Temperatures are dropping low enough for shelters to open this week throughout Central Florida. One of them opening their doors is the Neighborhood Center of West Volusia. It was founded in 1969 to help hungry and homeless people, and it continues to provide food and shelter today. Waylon Neese is Chief Operating Officer there. He joined Engage earlier today, and he began our discussion by explaining the conditions that would lead the shelter to operate under cold weather protocols.
So in conjunction with the county, we open the cold weather shelter anytime the weather or the temperatures are going to drop below 40 degrees, or if there are sustained wind chills of below 40 degrees. So if the wind chill for one night is only 39, but then the rest of the nights, it's back up to 45 or whatever, we might not open that one night. But if it's going to be 2-3 days consistent of wind chills below 40 degrees, then we'll open as well. But 40 is that kind of threshold criteria. And the county sends out 2 reports weekly, one on Mondays, one on Thursdays for the weekend period, and then Mondays for the early week period. And then that's how we kind of make our determinations. As far as this week goes, being that fell over a holiday, they were texting me personally on Sunday in anticipation of last night, because we opened last night as well.
Do people count on you? Do you see people return when the weather gets cold?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The majority of the people that stay in our cold weather shelter are the community clients that come in primarily just for the lunches, the dinners, and some of the other services we offer. That's the majority of the people that come to our cold weather shelter. And when they come, if we're open for, let's say, 5 nights in a row, when they come on night 1, they're already guaranteed a spot for the next night. But then if they don't show up, then we can take other individuals in. Our typical capacity is 30. We have 30 cots, pillows and blankets, in addition to, our regular housing beds or shelter beds. But last year during Christmas, we were open the whole Christmas holiday, Christmas Eve, Christmas, and the day after Christmas because of cold weather. And we had 50 people coming in for that. And so we were shoving people really wherever we could.
Have you noticed any kind of trends in the last couple of years in terms of more people need your help?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Since COVID-19, and I know this is going back, 4 or 5 years, we have seen a significant increase. In Volusia County alone, we've seen over a 17% increase in homelessness. And it has not gotten any better. Not all of that's on the pandemic as opposed to just the economy. I would say in the past 2 years we've seen a significant increase just because people are being priced out of their units that they're living in because rent reasonableness is out of the roof right now. And so, the need is constantly rising, and it's not just rising in our shelter services, and we also do housing as well. We house over 200 individuals through all of our various programs. We've seen a significant increase in that. And then also in our prevention services where we do utility and rental assistance as well as our food pantry, we've seen over a 13% increase in that just in the past year.
When we're talking about these cold nights, it's one thing I'm sure many people learn about it listening to the places that are opening, reading a list. But how do you reach the homeless population who can't just pull up a list of places that are open?
Well, we don't necessarily have to reach the homeless population because we are well known in the community. We are well known in all of Volusia County, and especially on the west side. We are the only entity on the west side of Volusia that offers the services that we offer. And it's kind of the way it is, we're divided east and west, and then there's a east side entity that also does similar services to what we do. So we don't necessarily have to advertise. We do put it out on Facebook and other social media platforms, but when it comes down to it, when we know that we're going to be open, we put out a sign up list for our lunch and for our dinner, obviously. But typically, we've already got people registered to come in for these nights during our lunch feeding.
Waylon, I'm just curious, just in your position, how does it feel in the moment? I mean, you're helping these people on cold nights when it's so uncomfortable. But I know, when the night's over, they still are homeless.
Yeah, yeah. It sucks. We really, our job at the end of the day really is to kind of work ourselves out of a job, and I've been saying that for 15 years now. And unfortunately, I don't see that happening anytime soon. We get compliments all the time about our expansion on this and our expansion on that, but at the end of the day, that's not. It might be a compliment that we're able to do the work, but it's an unfortunate reality because the goal would not be to expand. The goal would be to reduce the amount of services. And unfortunately, again, due to the economy, due to the lack of affordable housing and all of the other variables involved, it's an uphill battle that I don't necessarily see going away really anytime soon. Like I said, I've been doing this for 15 years and it has continued to increase. Again, homelessness, we had homelessness in Volusia County significantly down to about 600 individuals back in 2018. And then after the pandemic, we've just seen it skyrocket back up into the, 12, 13, 14, 1,500 individuals. And those are the ones that we're able to count. Those aren't even the ones that are unaccounted for.
I was going to ask you, do you have a busy season? Is the winter busier for you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. The winter is significantly busier, not just because of the cold weather shelter, but because we also want to provide all of our clients that live with us, as well as the community clients, things in the community to have a sense of normalcy. A lot of things we take for granted. We have a normal Thanksgiving or a normal barbecue on Memorial Day or a normal Christmas, whatever it might be. But a lot of people that we work with, whether it's through our prevention services, community clients, or our shelters or in housing programs, there's not a sense of normalcy. So we try to do a lot extra. We do Thanksgiving meal during the holidays, obviously the cold weather shelter. We do our Christmas meal. We do a specific New Year's meal. We do a annual Christmas barbecue in which a gentleman by the name of Chip Wilson and John Freeland, Free Will Barbecue, they pull in their smoker and we invite community clients to this as opposed to the sheltered clients. And they get to come and partake in a Christmas barbecue. And we have Santa come out and we invite over 300 families to come and receive specific toys on that day, which is a phenomenal thing. We've been doing this for 11 years now. And so that's just additional stuff that we offer to the community. We also, during the holiday season, we do Toys for Tots. So we do two different toy distributions every year for the community. So yeah, holidays are a extremely busy time.
And I'm curious if the clients that you're serving the cold weather, are they primarily homeless, or do you also see people in the community who maybe don't have adequate heat in their homes as well?
No, I would say the ones that come in for the cold weather shelter, they are literally the street level homeless. There's obviously there's a need in the community. We are a community driven organization, so we're by the community for the community. Without the support of our community, we would not be able to do what we do. And we believe, and I personally believe that it is the community's responsibility to take care of its own. And so any kind of support, whether it be financial support, whether it be volunteer support, whether it be a one-time project, All of those things help to drive the mission and to help those in our community in need to serve them with dignity and respect.
Waylon Neese is Chief Operating Officer at the Neighborhood Center of West Volusia. There's more ahead here on Engage. If you've been on a road in Central Florida, you've probably encountered some form of aggressive driving. Well, after an extreme case turned deadly in Orlando this week, a local psychotherapist joins us to talk about road rage and de-escalation. This is Engage on Central Florida Public Media. You are listening to Engage on Central Florida Public Media. I'm Sharon Stone. Ahead on this program, a local trade delegation recently returned from Spain in an effort to extend the Central Florida economy to the Iberian Peninsula.
We have big corporations here that have large presence in Europe, especially in Spain, like Siemens, Lockheed Martin, all of those companies that have presence in both regions.
We'll hear from Pedro Turchina, President and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Metro Orlando. First, though, think about what annoys you out on the roads. Is it when that slow driver just hangs out indefinitely in the left passing lane? Maybe a driver next to you inching forward at that red light that is very clearly red so they can speed ahead of you? Or my personal pet peeve, when someone doesn't let you back into traffic after you pulled over for an ambulance to pass. So these are just some of the common annoyances that can get us all worked up or a little angry behind the wheel. There are, though, those extreme occasions when aggressive driving escalates to a dangerous level. We saw it happen just yesterday in Orlando when two drivers got into an argument and one shot and killed the other on East Colonial Drive. Licensed psychotherapist Dr. Janie Lacey specializes in anger management and behavioral patterns at Life Counseling Solutions in Castleberry. She joined Engage today to talk about how much of this rage is about what's happening on the road versus the emotional baggage the person is carrying while driving. Dr. Lacey begins our conversation by explaining why she thinks there's an increase in road rage among Central Floridians.
When I hear about the road rage cases, and especially during certain times of the year when there's an increase, I think about just our link between just our stress, especially during certain times of the year. There's a heightened sense of stress and anxiety, which then can be taken out in traffic with aggressive behavior. So I tend to think of just the mental health issues that are there, but at certain times when there's increased traffic, there's increased stress, there's increased anxiety, especially around the holidays, that we do see that link that is increased around road rage incidences nationally.
Can you help me understand, what is it about driving specifically that it incites this rage in people? We don't talk about supermarket rage. What is it about the roads?
So when we think about just road rage in general, what happens in these traffic situations, especially when there is some type of perceived threat, is people can go into fight or flight response modes. So there's this automatic, whatever our dominant, each and every single one of us has a dominant way of how we normally respond to stress or things that we don't anticipate. For some people, they immediately go into these fight modes. Some people try to flee or they go internal, right? So our dominant responses that we are already operating from in our life, they just get heightened in these traffic situations. So we're looking at those fight or flight responses. And then we're also looking at the perceived threats and the loss of control. So in general, outside of the vehicles, if people respond to perceived threats and potentially a loss of control aggressively, then when you're in traffic situations, it's not going to be any different. Sometimes there's just more of a heightened sense of that perceived threat and the loss of control, and then people go into that fight response. But we look at, vehicles, if we think about our vehicles are an extension of our personal space. So when people are driving and let's say someone cuts them off, or there's something that's happening in another car that is affecting your vehicle, people take things very personal because that vehicle does look as an extension of their personal space. So as they're taking it very personal, then that can mean that they also can respond from a very personal space. And again, if they have mental health issues, if they already have anger management challenges, then when they're in these situations, their aggressive behavior can come out just as it would in other spaces. But if there's this perceived threat, then that's where we see this heightened sense that can lead to loss of life or someone getting hurt in particular. And then if we think about, we use our vehicles. Like I'm at my office in Castleberry, so I use my vehicle to drive to my office. So sometimes people have time pressure, they have scheduling stress, and whatever is happening in that person's life, their personal life stressors, it can spill into their driving. So if I was late to work, I'm probably going to be driving a little bit faster than I normally would because I have this time pressure. So then you put things into place like that, and then you're putting into the stress of that, the time pressure. And then if someone already has mental health issues and then someone cuts them off or is preventing them from moving forward and wherever they want to move forward, and people can respond with very aggressive, but there are some precursors that we see, because not you and I may not respond that way, but if someone has some precursors as far as mental health issues, or they already have anger management challenges, or they just have, we look at the ACEs, if they already have a lot of stressful things happening in their life. And then we also see, from a normalization standpoint, right? Aggressive driving sometimes also becomes part of our culture. So when I look at all those things, I look at those as contributing factors to some of these situations, for sure.
When you're talking about the perceived threats, and I'm picturing myself behind the wheel, are you talking about other aggressive drivers near me, or can those perceived threats also be the situation if I'm in a heavily construction zone or I'm stuck at a long light? Could those be perceived threats as well?
It depends, right? So that perceived threat can be that person who's cutting you off, and then they're looking at you from a very aggressive standpoint. Or the heightened stress, I would say, would be more of you're stuck in traffic. There's a loss of control because you're trying to get somewhere, but the traffic is moving slower. That's going to naturally put people's anxieties higher, their stress levels higher. Right. And then, yes, we can look at it as a perceived threat because now I can't get to where I want to get to. So all of my senses and all of the ways in which I cope with life and I cope with my stress and anxiety in general are now going to be activated. So that's why it's important that, each and every person, I believe that we should all have ways of preventative strategies and ways that we deal with our own stress in each and every, because the things that we don't deal with are going to persist. They're going to come out in our life. And in this situation, it comes out on the road. So if we don't deal with our stress level, if we don't deal with our mental health issues, if we're not taking care of ourselves, and these are preventative things. So when we are in stressful situations like traffic, or if we're facing someone that is road raging, that we ourselves can think clearly because we can do things to strategize and not react and put ourselves in fight or flight mode. So I think especially around the holidays, having some type of stress management and being able to deal with a lot of things that are happening in our individual life so that we are on the road, that we are not put into the situations that we could have prevented, like if we can, me taking the time to leave my house on early to get to my office, right? There's certain things that we can do to set ourselves up to be in less stressful situations.
Do you have any thoughts on what someone can do if you're taking those steps to take care of yourself, but there are going to be rude people on the road? How do you handle the situation if you feel like your anxiety is accumulating because of someone else's actions?
What I tell people, the one thing I know it's hard for people to do, but when you're in a situation where, let's say, someone else is aggressive and now your stress level is getting heightened because you noticed, is one of the things I would tell people to do is first avoid eye contact. Because if someone is being aggressive and they're driving aggressive, the very fact that you give them eye contact, sometimes, depending on who that person is and how they are perceiving whatever is happening, they can look at that as a threat. So avoid eye contact with aggressive drivers. I always say maintain a safe distance. If they are driving faster, maybe you should slow your car down or get into a different lane versus, well, I'm not going to let them affect me. I'm going to stay right here. Now is not the time for all that stuff. So I would maintain safe distance. And if you truly, truly feel like the person is being aggressive around you, is to pull over if necessary and just let them go and you pull over. And then if things really get dangerous and you really see someone being erratic or aggressive, call 911, report dangerous behaviors to authorities. Don't ignore it and don't feel like you can handle it, because sometimes these things get escalated when people feel like they can handle these situations or it's not as bad. But if there's something that's continuous and it's, passing just a few seconds or a few moments of someone passing you by, then now is the time to report it, pull over, maintain that safe distance, avoid eye contact with that person at all costs, and do not take it personal. Do not take it personal.
Yeah, because you're probably never going to ever see that person again in the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And just to wrap up, any other ideas on just how do you everything's so stressful, how do you relax, find some zen behind the wheel with just you and the road?
Some things in general, especially when you're on the road, if there are things that you can control, like leaving on time and removing the time pressure and the scheduling stress, if you can. And then if you're able to maybe sometimes take less traveled roads and enjoy listening to music, maybe just kind of using that time to just reflect. But, outside of that, there's this brings up the importance of emotional regulation, that each and every single one of us, emotions are normal. They're a normal part of who we are. But when we get into our feelings, so to speak, that's where we can go into a place of taking things personal. So having an understanding of your own personal emotional regulation, how do you regulate your emotions? How do you take care of those things? Have a safety first mindset, that when you are driving behind the wheel, right, which can be one of the most dangerous things we get into on a daily basis, is to have a safety first mindset. Do everything you can to always be safe, and then to build, especially during the holidays, I would suggest people build resilience against daily stressors by taking care of themselves, removing time stressors, focusing on the things that we can control and not the things that we can't control, and to find things that bring us joy, if it's listening to music while you're driving in your vehicle, or maybe opening that sunroof, getting some fresh air. Whatever those little things may be that you can incorporate on a daily basis can kind of just help being in a place of calmness, and of a place where you can think through and strategize in case you do hit something that you didn't expect to come across as you're driving on the road like an aggressive driver.
Dr. Janie Lacey is a licensed psychotherapist. While Central Florida drivers may find themselves repeatedly irked by others on the road, it's often the tools of traffic safety that drive us the craziest. The traffic lights of this region, well, some of them carry a reputation as time wasters. The extended light cycles seem to surpass those of even the most congested markets. For some, it's an annoyance, maybe even a legitimate inconvenience. For businesses that rely on over-the-road transit of goods, it can cost money. Jeff Brandis, like most Floridians, wants to fix this antiquated traffic system. He is the founder and president of the Florida Policy Project, a nonprofit think tank and policy developer. He sees a path to reforming the problems on the road. The Policy Project recently collaborated with the University of South Florida Center for Urban Transportation Research to publish a report looking at ways to use technology to make the state traffic systems safer and more efficient. Brandis joined Engage earlier today to talk about some of these solutions. He began the discussion by explaining why Florida's traffic systems differ from others in the country.
Well, I think everybody in Florida experiences pulling up to a stoplight, seeing no other traffic around them, and wondering what the heck is going on and why I have to sit there for the next 2 or 3 minutes if there's no other traffic. The simple truth is Florida has an outdated traffic signal system. It needs to invest in upgrades, and it's probably the best return on investment we could find in all of transportation spending right now.
Really?
Absolutely. I mean, think about this. The amount of time that we spend, the amount of energy that we spend waiting in traffic, especially when we have new technologies that are digitalized, utilizing AI and machine learning. This is the future of transportation and travel is utilizing these new tools that just weren't available to us a few years ago.
Since we're talking about the economic impact, do you see, considering how much of our retail commerce has turned to delivery, is there any type of impact there?
Absolutely. Look, everybody is impacted when we have inefficient traffic signalization. every person, every business is impacted by that. And so I think across the board, this is why I say it's the best return on investment we could make is to upgrade our signals and create a digital infrastructure. And Florida should be a leader nationally in signalization.
Do you see any impacts to safety as well?
There's incredible impacts to safety. Look, I mean, most of the major accidents that we have are unfortunately at traffic intersections. And so with this technology, we have the ability to make our intersections safer, make them more efficient, and reduce greenhouse gas emissions. I think it's a triple win. And this is why it should be a place where Florida invests significant resources.
This is on my mind because we saw this horrible, just awful case of deadly road rage in Orlando's Milk District yesterday. Obviously, no one is condoning that behavior. It was unnecessary. Do you find, though, that this situation with these lights, can that make something like road rage worse?
Well, I mean, anytime you're getting more frustrations, it's going to potentially enhance people's negative perspective about what's going on in any given situation. I think what Florida should be doing is making a commitment to having the best infrastructure we can have. And the place that I would argue, and that frankly the research argues that we can make a major investment, is in our existing signals. These are signals that are there. We don't have to put in new infrastructure. We need to upgrade them, but we need to make them more resilient for storms. But it's absolutely an area where Florida should be a leader. And I think it will help deal with some of these accidents. Maybe not solve all the road rage incidents, but it will definitely help deal with some of the accidents.
I want to talk to you about the methods of fixing it. But first, do we know why they run so long? Or am I hearing you say it's just outdated?
Yeah, they're just outdated. I mean, a lot of these signals are on analog systems, just simple timers. They aren't timed. And this is why, how frustrating it is when you get a green light and only to be met with another red light at the next intersection or another red light at the following one, right? If we can smooth out traffic flows, if we can use the existing technology and make the system better at scale across the state, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we make that investment now? It's not a question of if Florida is going to go in this direction. It's a question of when. Ultimately, 2030, 2035, we will have upgraded intersections. We should make the investment now. We should lean in, and Florida should be a leader in this technology.
We touched on this a little bit. Can you talk about the methods of fixing this? What technology can be used to better manage this traffic flow?
Sure.
Is it the AI you're talking? Okay.
So the first thing we've got to do is allow our traffic control systems devices to be digitalized. Again, a lot of them are on simple timers. They're on ancient systems that were, installed in the mid 90s. Many of them aren't internet connected. And so the opportunity for us to upgrade at scale our traffic signals and make a major investment both on the cities, counties, and state part in order to do that. The state needs to set new standards and get cities and communities to move to those standards, and they need to provide resources to incentivize them to move towards those resources. And then it's allowing kind of the Internet of Things to really enhance the travel experience. So it's utilizing new AI, new machine learning that has just become available in the last few years to help us smooth out traffic, to make these intersections safer, but smoother, and make traffic flow more efficiently. We have the technology now that we didn't have available to us a few years ago. Let's utilize it, and let's let Florida be a leader in utilizing it.
I would say it's one thing to talk about, small municipal projects. How do you even begin to address this at a statewide level, though?
Yeah, so it starts with the Department of Transportation, cities and counties working to set new standards for digital infrastructure and specifically at traffic signals. They need to set those new standards. They need to set a deadline for when counties and cities need to have implemented those new standards. And then the state, along with the cities and counties, need to invest the dollars towards that, right? We have companies that sell these types of products, but we need to have a common architecture, a common infrastructure, set new standards, and move the cities and counties at scale to new standards. I think you could probably start with a few cities that you operate as pilots, pilot cities who maybe get this technology first. And then we can show people how much savings we're getting in time, in less traffic accidents, and in emissions. all of those things, I think, will help encourage other cities to adopt this as well. But again, it's going to require resources from the state. It's going to require the commitment by the cities and counties to implement it.
Have you found support in Tallahassee for this?
I think there's a lot of support from that. So listen, the legislators, they drive too. They're driving home every week from Tallahassee to their homes, and they're running into the situation, and they're hearing from constituents about infrastructure. Listen, Florida has 23 million people in it. We have got to lean in and having the most robust infrastructure we can have that is utilizing emerging technologies like AI and machine learning to help assist us and get us better, especially when you're talking about new bridges in Florida. You could spend $1 billion on a new bridge in the state of Florida. Well, let's spend that money on existing infrastructure and upgrading what we already have to make sure that the infrastructure that we have in place today is operating as efficiently as we can make it.
My last question is, how can you tell if it's technology that is outdated or just a symptom of growth and just the number of people that are moving here every day?
Well, we know that technology is outdated, right? We know that how many cities are operating on simple timers, and where they're, when you have concerts or when you have sporting events in town, and the traffic is all backed up because the timers haven't adjusted to that demand. So we know the cities that have this challenging infrastructure, and frankly, that's what the Florida Policy Project has worked on. All we do at our foundation is look at best practices from around the country. So the Florida Policy Project, the Hillsborough County Expressway Authority, engaged with the University of South Florida to really look at this issue of signalization. And what they show is how many of these cities just have outdated infrastructure that's analog, that's on simple timers, that isn't even connected to the internet to allow us to adjust the timing of these for major events or for driving at night or driving during rush hour, right? Many of them are on simple timers that stay the same no matter the traffic density, and that just isn't appropriate. It may have been appropriate in 2002 when Florida had half the population, but it isn't appropriate today with 23 million people and 150 million tourists. I think this is a bipartisan issue that every legislator can get behind. I think it's a place where Florida can absolutely be a leader in the country. And I think it's a place where we should lean in to being the #1 state in the country for digitalized infrastructure. And I think that Florida would see huge benefits going forward. These emerging technologies are coming out. Florida should be a leader in addressing these emerging technologies. It's going to cause it, but we need to make the investment and the commitment to get there. I think we have one of the best departments of transportation in the country. I think they need to set new standards. They need to set the bar high, and they need to have cities and counties encouraged and incentivized to reach those standards. I think if we do that, we can say as a state we have the best, most digitally enabled infrastructure in the country, and we're utilizing the latest technology to solve problems that you and I deal with every day as we drive to and from work and to our kids to school.
Former State Senator Jeff Brandes is founder and president of the Florida Policy Project. We know it can be frustrating out there on the roads of Central Florida, and we always want to hear from you. What bothers you? Let us know. Just send us an email to engage@cfpublic.org. Coming up, unlocking opportunities to bridge Central Florida and Spain. You're listening to Engage on Central Florida Public Media. You're listening to Engage on Central Florida Public Media. I'm Sharon Stone. Finally this afternoon, creating a connection from Central Florida overseas to Spain. A delegation from Central Florida businesses and organizations is back from visiting the country. One of their primary goals is to advocate for expanding direct flights from Spain to Florida. The mission trip was led by the Hispanic Chamber of Metro Orlando. Pedro Turachina is president and CEO. He joins Engage to talk about the real value of these international mission trips that we hear about. Turachina opens our conversation by explaining why Spain is of economic importance to Central Florida.
Last year alone, we had approximately 200,000 visitors from Spain to Florida. And the opportunity here is that the Spaniard community has a lot of similarities with ours. We have the aerospace industry, big opportunity for us to strengthen and broaden that space here for us. We have big corporations here that have large presence in Europe, especially in Spain, like Siemens, Lucky Martin, all of those companies that have presence in both regions. And the tourism industry is also big for us here in Central Florida. So we, as a Hispanic chamber, saw an opportunity, especially because we speak the same language. We saw an opportunity to bring our delegation to explore and experience those opportunities there. A couple of other opportunities that we see as an option for us to grow is the infrastructure and the commerce. Many of those companies want to set or establish their businesses here in Central Florida or in the US. But we want to showcase Central Florida as an opportunity for those companies to set presence here in Central Florida. And in partnership with the Orlando Economic Partnership, the National Entrepreneur Center, and other entities that went along with us, Visit Orlando went on the trip with us. We saw that if we go as a group and we show the collaborative mindset that we have here in Central Florida, we can showcase our community with a lot of opportunity, and hopefully they can come to us and bring their businesses here in Central Florida.
What actually came from this trip? Are contracts signed? Give me some insight into how this process works in the timeline.
The results of the trip brought a couple of opportunities for us here in Central Florida. The first one is a direct connection with the decision-making leaders from two airlines, Iberia and Iberojet. We're in conversations to see to explore the opportunities of bringing a direct flight. And we have to do it as a group. We have to partner up with all the entities that joined us to bring forward a proposal to show them what would it take for them to have those direct flights. That's the number one result from this. So we're still in conversations. It's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take a little bit of time to work on the process of making it a reality. The second was the connection with the sports industry. We visited the Atlético de Madrid stadium, state-of-the-art building. The infrastructure and the sustainability inside that building, the sustainable efforts in that building showed us the opportunity that we have here in Central Florida. So they didn't only learn from us, but we learned from them on what other opportunities we can put in place here, especially Orlando being one of the number one cities in sports and business. So that we brought already and putting in place. The second thing is that we experienced EDO, which is one of the high-speed train systems, one of the top-of-the-line train systems in Spain. Is a luxury travel system. And we were able to experience that and learn from them the train system, which is also one of the opportunities here in Central Florida. We have the Brightline expansion and some other opportunities here with transportation. So for us to experience that and live it in that setting was breathtaking. The third thing was connecting with the Madrid Chamber of Commerce. The Madrid Chamber of Commerce brought high-level business leaders within the organization, and we were able to connect with close to 60 individuals that are businesses interested in Central Florida. The call to action on their end was doing business with Central Florida, join us in this reception, and the attention was unbelievable. We had a room full of 60 business owners, and every single one of them had an idea or an opportunity to bring their business here in Central Florida, from construction to manufacturing, delivering or logistics. And those connections were more centralized with our delegation. They were more one-to-one conversations that I'm seeing the results now on those, one-on-one connections where the businesses are now in conversations, continuing, the line of business. And then the last thing was the VIP tour of the airport, the La Terminal 4 T4, which is one of the top airports in Europe. And we were able to visit and tour the facility and understand the whole infrastructure, the security, how they navigate the passengers from point A to point B, because it's a very large airport. So our delegation had the opportunity to navigate that experience and take points, right? Take notes on moving the tourism, right, in and out of the city. And then on the other side, the cultural component, we were able to visit three key points in Madrid. One of them was the Galeria Canalejas, which is a food hall experience. It's a high-end food hall experience here in Central Florida. We've been wanting to have a food hall experience, and I think we already have a couple. But experiencing this European style of food hall experience also brought a lot of information for us to apply or implement here in Central Florida. The second one was the visit to the Royal Gallery, so to learn the history of Spain, the masterpieces, the crowns, you know, the royal experience, the museum showcasing priceless historical artifacts, and for us to truly understand where our history is coming from, right? When many of our cultures come from, Spain, so we were able to journey and go through centuries of history, and then we close out the session with another cultural experience with Corral de la Morería, where we saw the dining experience with flamenco.
Oh.
And that was the perfect closure of our journey in Madrid or in Spain, because that complete the whole entire experience in Spain. You know, the wine, the cheese, the rice, the paella, and bringing that back home here, which in turn, one of the things that I'm actually proud to announce, our upcoming event, which is the gala to close our year, Don Quixote Awards, it's going to be influenced in the Madrid, Spain, Barcelona experience. So everything in the experience here locally, we're going to bring that culture back. A lot of exciting things happening there.
Nice. So I definitely, just talking to you, I see the benefits from your end and just what it might bring to the area. Did you get a sense when you were there that maybe the chamber leaders in Madrid, were they just as excited to hear from you and seeing, the potential for them to grow specifically in Central Florida?
Yes, and I have to say, very proud to say that the first official meeting in Madrid, so we started in Barcelona, we visited the Smart Cities Conference, one of the largest conferences in the world, with over 65,000 attendees. So Barcelona was just about smart cities. And then after smart cities, we transferred over to Madrid with the speed train video. But we got to Madrid at 9:30 on a Tuesday, very late, in the center of Madrid. And this reception, the welcome reception, was a very high-level executive reception with leadership from Real Madrid, Atlético de Madrid, El Ayuntamiento, which is the City Hall of Madrid, El Corte Inglés, which is the largest retailer in Spain, Aboris, the airline company, and Disney, representative from Disney, Madrid and Portugal. So it was a very high-end selective group that were receiving us. So to answer your question, the interest to learn and meet us was tremendous. They wanted to be there. They wanted to connect with our audience. And being in that room to start and set off our experience in Madrid was truly an experience. And I felt honored, right, to have the high caliber of attendees and participants there on a Tuesday, in the middle of the city of Madrid at 9:30 p.m.
Now, that's a really interesting perspective. We just get caught up in just living here, but it's interesting to hear about the appeal seen from other areas, especially internationally. I'm wondering if you learned anything else from the trip that kind of surprised you that I haven't thought you did.
Yes. Well, first, the attention and the interest in the Central Florida community. Like I said, those two meetings, the one at the Chamber of Commerce in Madrid and the one in the reception, the welcome reception, seeing the interest in our delegation for us was truly eye-opening, because that truly told us that there's an opportunity and there's interest for us to do business. Those two. The second, the interest to bring that flight to Central Florida. Both airlines were very interested. They were open with the conversations. very strategic. It's not an easy task, and I have to commend the airlines. Both airlines are very strategic on how do they make this happen. It's not an easy task. It's a very expensive task also for the airlines. So they have to be very intentional on when they open a flight. It's not just as easy as, hey, yes, we are interested. Orlando has 70 million visitors. So seeing them so prepared and ready for us and welcoming us, right, as a delegation, I think was an eye-opening for us too. And me personally, that was the first time experiencing this type of conversations. And also as a chamber, it's the first time that we joined forces with other entities to bring this direct flight opportunity for our region.
I'm not aware of Spain being on the list, but we know the incoming president, Trump, has talked about it, imposing heavy tariffs. Does that at all change the metric that you are operating under moving forward?
As of right now, that has not changed our vision or our goal to make this happen. I'm sure we're going to hear it later on, early next year. We're going to start listening or learning more about this change in tariffs. So as of right now, we're going to continue the process as is. I don't think there was any hesitation from the other end. I think they were very solid on the numbers and the opportunity, and that confidence brought us also confidence on our end that we can deliver this, right? That we can make this happen.
Pedro Tudor-Shina is president and CEO of the Hispanic Chamber of Metro Orlando. That is all for today's edition of Engage. We are back Thursday at 3 o'clock. If you miss any part of the show today, you can always subscribe to the Engage podcast and listen whenever it is convenient for you. The show will be available on demand at cfpublic.org. Just a reminder, we want to engage from you and hear from this community. Let us know what you'd like to hear more about, what you're glad you heard. Send us an email to engage@cfpublic.org. Or you can send us a talkback on the free Central Florida Public Media app. In the menu, select Send Us a Talkback. Just record your comment, your question, hit send, we will get it. Thank you for the company. I'm Sharon Stone. All Things Considered is coming up following NPR News.